times. For example, what if I was to say, I can't stand to sit down? What does that mean? I can't stand to sit down.
That's an oxymoron.
Actually, what it is sometimes word stand is used for the word endure or prepare. So, like I said, English is a lot of fun because you can get so many contradictions in it. Our language is like that too. So today we'll start with gyudam. That's so that phrase means sharpen your ears.
How do you say it?
T-O with a pinch. K with a pinch and double A. Gyudam, ears are gyudam, sharpen your ears.
Okay.
Shakunamai anatsukum. I'm saying it so you can hear. So what I want to do is just to go through this alphabet. I don't know how many of you have copies. Did you make copies?
Yeah. There's one down.
Yeah, we can go through this. It's not really an alphabet. It's really a sound chart of the sounds. For example, when magic, what I do is
Any more?
see, like when they said hat. The jung. This A is pronounced like the U in sun. Duh. Duh.
Duh.
And since you've got one A there that's pronounced like an A in sun, so this J-A-N-G is in jang. Jung. The NG sound is made in your sinus. Like when something tastes good, you say This is the jung, not the jang or jung, jung. And sometimes you'll hear it when, like for example, what I was saying here was Saukudamai anasukin, that those NG sounds are very prominent throughout our whole language. Saukudamai, gudamai, anasukin. So when you have, we'll say, the word saw, when you have two A's, it's like the A in father, ah. So saw is above, but if you put it some in Canadian lingo, it would be sad. That's what they call my car. I have a saw, but people call it a sad. Darn, it's tough to be the only person that's perfect. I hope I'm never him or her. And then the next one, like when we were writing Haida, I may have been the culprit that spelled Guai this way, when it should be island. Two I's are pronounced as E, like in bean. So that'd be Haida Gui.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have two A's and a Y, then this is pronounced like I, Y, I, the Y. So that's when you have two A's and a Y. The I it's pronounced like the I in the word lie. These two A's and Y, I. And then CH is like in church or chin or chain. D is in dog. DL, we have three sounds, TL, DL, and HL. And just sort of a little way to remember it. The word antler, this word, antler, antler. And you change this T to a D, becomes antler, like blur, blur. If you change that to an H, it's antler, blue. So you got blue, blue, and blue.
So you really gotta listen carefully to hear what someone's saying.
And then when you're speaking, you have to make sure you pronounce the word correctly, because it's very easy to make mistakes. And so what we'll do is, after we go through this, then we'll just take some words and just practice pronouncing them. Everybody take a shot at it. So that's that. And then, so that's the DL, HL, and TL sound. J is like a jump, and K, see we've got 4 Ks. I just tell people that's the sound of raven. Caw, 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 caw. Caw, just a K sound. And this one here, there's no English equivalent, but if you have hearing road, it's called cow, cow, not gow, cow, cow. That's that sound. See your tongue, push your tongue up to the kind of roof of the mouth, hold here, and then push out. Caw, 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 cow, cow.
So is gow
That's the last
how?
Huh?
That's the last one? The last A with the underline and the apostrophe?
Well, we'll go to, and then this one here, caw, like my name, Collinson, caw, it's down here, caw, like you got something stuck, a little bit of hairball, caw, caw, Collinson, is my name, Collin. And then this one combines these two. So it's pronounced kind of like this one, but it's deeper down in the throat. So this is like caw, 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 caw. It sounds deep. Caw is up toward the top of the mouth. Caw, 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 caw. Go try it. Caw. Custer took a chance. Caw, caw, caw. Caw. Here, try it. Caw, 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 caw.
The last one is back in your palate. One before it is front of your palate, but it's still up in your mouth.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just caw,
Cow,
caw, caw, caw. So that's where you got 2 A's. But it's caw, 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 caw. So anyway, and then the L is like in land, and then this one here has no English equivalent. That's, I guess it's called a glottal stop, but it's that's an L. And so when you have this in front of a letter, what you have to do is you hold the air in here. You tighten your hair, la, la, la. And then if you get a W, it's wa, wa, wa. Again, it's, you have to tighten these muscles so that it pushes it out. Because you can make lots of mistakes by using the wrong pronunciation. Like, for example, with this one here, this G that we didn't get to up there, G with a line under it, and a K with a line under it. Now, we might have this one. Now, this one here, if you put an N on the end, this is pronounced like an H.
Silent, kind of?
No, it's, well, say for example, you have the word hot dog. And you change that H to this G. So instead of hot dog, it's hot dog, hot dog. So something you hear quite frequently, in our greeting, Sinudam Haidam, it has that G with a line under it, and many of the people, I don't know if it's just a dialect or whether it's just laziness or just never learn to pronounce it correctly, but in Masset they won't say Sinudam Haidam, because Sinudam Haidam, Haidam, it's the P. Skidegate uses the same sound, the P, that H will sound with a G. Now, if we take these two words, spa and spa, spa, spa. Come on in.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Morning. I'm turned around. Anyway, so Span is an orca. Span is your aunt. So I don't think your aunt's going to want you to call her a whale. And this one is kind of funny too, because there was a lady at home, her name was Nora. Nora Kobu, and her name was Spanja, and she went to visit my Uncle Wesley's wife, and she wasn't Haida, but she always hear people calling her by the name Spanja. So she decided she would use that name when Spanja came to her house. She knocked on the door. And opened the door. Oh, how you doing, Spanja? That's toilet paper. Wait, Slanja. And the old lady about killed herself laughing. She had to sit on the porch. She thought it was so funny. So it's very, very important that these sounds are made. We're just going through the alphabet. Like the single A is like the U in son. The double A is like the A in father. The AAY is like the I in live. I, B, and then C is just ch. Ch. Anybody here know the Haida word for cherries? Yeah, I'll show you the secret.
Chalice?
Shelly.
Kelly.
We don't
I was
have
close.
any R. We got no R in our language, so we're.
So I've heard I heard them say Skane.
Well, there's different
ways.
Names, yeah.
Yeah.
But doesn't that make it more than one killer whale? Like if you add, how do you pluralize again?
I really don't know how they do that. We'll get to that much later, because I just want to get down to the sounds first. So you get the correct pronunciation. So anyway, we got down this G, this G line is a very important one. Also your spirit, your spirit is there. This is Haida. Haida is that medicine person. The spirit guide is Haida. But then this sound right here, because that's sort of the root word for your spirit. And that's this place right here in your chest. That's where your spirit place is. Your heart is just a muscle.
So is, SGAAM, is that spirit?
And,
Or ska?
and,
N
yeah,
is spirit.
Han.
Huh?
But we'll go back to it. And then the M is just as in mother, and N is like nut and woody. And NG, this again, like I said, this is a very important sound because you find it throughout our language. And your Dene-speaking people do not make that sound. If you ever see any of the movies with Chief Dan George, when he uses the word hang, it becomes hand. Out there on, I forget the name of that village on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Anyway, the priest got sick, so when he went to the hospital, they sent a replacement for him. And so the first Sunday he was going to be preaching, everybody went to church to see what he's like. And he started off with his hellfire and brimstone, "Y'all a bunch of sinners!" Well, he was very entertaining. So next Sunday they went back. He started again, "Y'all a bunch of sinners!" And one lady jumped up and said, "You're wrong. Some of us are drummers." So yeah, this looks like dang, but that's that single A up. Dum, dum. It's right now. Dum. Sinu dum he dum. So it begins to take on a specific rhythm to be able to make those sounds correctly. Because if you just use your English delivery, it won't work. Boy, you know, you can get away with it. So that gets us down to P is in pipe, and then P with that apostrophe. It's like dup.
Jew?
Don't spit on anybody when you're doing it. Yeah, my Tanat said it's real hard language to learn. First you gotta cough it up, you chew on it a little bit and then spit it out. So that's that P. And then S is just like in C. T is like in the word team. Then when we get to T, then again we have this. So when I use that word over here, oh, that's got a T in it. But that's all the chitin. Your chitins, those little black things are called yeah, just the tongue behind there. And your gums behind your teeth.
It's not two syllables, it's one syllable, right? Is it two syllables?
Just one. Are you a tough guy? And then we went through the TL sound, like the word antler. TL.
Because there's all this glottal stops and pinching, did that make the language go kind of slower?
I guess so. What the old people said, you know, some people talk, they got something to say, so they talk. There's some people that talk real fast, they keep talking until they say something. Yeah, but yeah, it does slow it down. Even like this little sentence here was, Julia Kakitlam. Juyang Kakitlam. It's the sun is coming down. We don't say the sun is coming up, it's going up and it's coming down. In English, it's coming up and going down. So you have to change the way you see the world. And when you get into the rhythm of the language, it changes how you think also. So that TL sound, and then we go from the TL to this one here. Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, with the tongue right, and the air comes out from the side. Same with just a TL. You push it from the side of your teeth. I guess you gotta purse your lips a little bit. And then we have the TS. Like that's beaver, but that's also your front teeth. I think that one might have the tongue this way. But the beaver has those big front teeth. So that's why beaver's called tongue, and that's what we call our teeth. And then you, just like in foot. Like the A is in sun is up. This is up. And then when you have two U's, it's like the double O's in moon. It's ooh, ooh, ooh. When I was working on snakes on a plane, I asked Samuel Jackson what he thought about this movie. He said it's a no-brainer. I don't have to act. All I gotta do is go, ooh, ooh, ooh. So these are all little memory devices. Remember these little stories. You gotta get the sounds right. That's W, and W is like in wind. And then this is the one is again where you hold the muscles tight in the abdomen. But you have to push it here. You can actually just put your fingers on your stomach so you can because you're tightening your stomach to push the air out. And then the X here is like in Mexico, so when you see the X without any markings around it, this Mexico, but this is the sound that makes us a linguistic isolate. There's no other language that uses that sound. And that's the hardest one to learn. At least it was for me, because I was always in a hurry to get things done. And my dad's older sister, she made me sit down and keep saying that to her until it sounded right to her. Like when we say our word for it's way down here. It's like you got a fish going way down here. And so when you hear people saying Hadalas, that's not even close. Hadis, las is. It's good people. Las is. So that is one that she would say, no, say it again. And then this one here, this one is pronounced a little bit different, like the word for fence. Klachen, klachen, this X is and this is so the tones are really important. Like this word here. We put an accent mark over the A there to make sure that your vocal sound, of course, it goes up. Because people from Massive are called ho, 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 ho is a big day. Ho is the flesh of a deer or a fish and also body hair. So I don't know why those things are categorized that way, but if you get the wrong tone, you get the wrong word. But that's all from practice. But when you look at the alphabet too, you'll see you don't see this here until you start seeing the words where you see that accent mark, which means your vocal inflection goes up.
So, I've taken all of Woody's, sounds there from the alphabet, put them on my phone. So, you guys, if you want a copy, and we can.
The letter A here is pronounced as the U in sun. So, there you go. That's the words, the force.
So if you want a copy of this, so you can listen to them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I have it all on this little stick.
It's better than sleeping pills. You don't get a hangover.
I need a stick and I'll put it on a stick for you.
Oh, I'd like one.
Yes, please.
Okay. And it also includes all those audio clips that we did on, or Woody did, on the wind. So,
On the what? The wind?
yeah.
You have to internet on your phone.
The wind is singing from the sky or heaven, and sometimes that refers to the vast river.
So if you want this, make sure you get me stick next to me.
Okay. I think I got one at home.
Ready for you.
Okay, so
What
now
type
that,
of flavor is tea? Grapefruit?
so now that we've gone through this thing, maybe we can get you all just to pronounce them. The first one is up, like in the U in sun, up. The double A is ah, like in father, ah. And the AAY is like the I in lie, I. Then bug for just like vote. CH for chin or church or chin. D is in dog, da. And then do. You put your tongue right here and push the air out to the side. Do. The one language where you find these GO, TO, and HO sounds is what they call Welsh, the Welsh language. That's the HO, VO, and PO sounds. So and then EI is like A in day. So you have A, but it's EI. Then the G is that G line one. Punt, like punt. Just say that word, punt. Punt, that's water. Punt. Except in Skiddy it's gundle. Gundle.
They pronounce the G just like it is.
Well, see, they use the same mark under the G, but they pronounce it as though it has a cap on it. We put a cap over the top of it to make that sound. So, but anyway, so Massive never used that same G with a line under it to make that word for water. And then I haven't heard anybody say it. Yeah, you got a hairball in your tongue. You just swallowed a cookie and you're trying to get a piece. So, the HL is like antler with an H, and shoo. Again, it's pushing the air out through your push your lips together, not this way, shoo. It's like in German, you have to, face moves, wir reitet so schnell durch Nacht und Wind. So you have to get the face moving the right way, so you see people's facial muscles are really a product of their language. So I teach those guys, those kilt-lost people, the singing people about fish. Did you get any fish? Fish. Because their language has a different, and they also don't have the NG sound, because that is one of the Dene or Athabascan languages, I think.
Is that what that means? Kill-on?
Kilt-lost.
Kilt-lost.
Kill is the voice, las is the quality of goodness.
So when we're like, I've heard some Haidas talk about Simshan people in like a derogatory term.
Yeah.
But it's not, that's not what it is.
What happened in residential school is people are always being put down and put down and put down. And so people start putting other people down and putting them down, trying to make themselves bigger. But in Haida, it says my stature is determined by how tall I am, not how small I make somebody else look. But I asked my dad's older brother, we were fishing out in Dixon Entrance, trolling for salmon. And I heard those guys from Kikatla and from Milikatla and Port Simpson talking on our radios. So I asked my uncle, I said, who are those people? He said, they're kill-lost. I said, what's that? And he said, the singing people. He said, listen to them. Oh, my God, I said, well, it sounds like they're singing when they're talking. And he said they were highly prized as orators, because when they get up to speak, everybody listens. So it's really a compliment. It's like the woman that said she was given the name Chirpy Bird because she was chirpy as a kid. But that's when the bird is announcing daylight. That's a very important name, but she made her feel small for over 50 years. So what we need to do is to start respecting each other again and stop making those, I mean, you know, they make fun of us too, you know, like the Simshan people would say the way Haida's got their name. Haida's, the Tlingits are coming. So it's one thing to joke and tease each other, but when it has a barb in it, no, that's not good. Because as we go through this global climate change, we're going to need each other to survive. Because, like right now in Alaska, the trolling, commercial trolling for salmon has been shut down because there's not enough fish. The starfish haven't come back. They started deteriorating. There's thimbleberries aren't ripening. Some areas, the huckleberries are full of ripe berries and the others are green. There's the bears and the wolves are coming down to the streams to try and find something to eat. There's no fish, so they're eating grass. And so we got all these things happening. Out here we got the orcas out there don't have enough salmon to eat, and that's their food. They don't feed on sea mammals like seals, sea lions, seal, and so that's just they're starved. We got cedars that are dying, salonberries are dying, the rancid are dying, not enough water. So all these things are happening. So we have to start looking around, taking care of each other. And what I was hoping would come out of that that gathering of elders was to start talking about the young people, because we've been putting them down, making them feel bad about themselves. They're rebellious, you know, all kinds of things. Their brains are developing, they're changing, and our job is to understand and to listen. So we're going to have to start doing that if we're going to survive. Because some of their ideas might sound crazy, but you keep them talking, they might come up with something that'll solve a lot of things. But anyway, I better get off my soapbox. How far did we get now?
We're at HL, I think.
The I is just like the I in pin, it, and the double I is like EA and beam, E, so that's E. The J is like in jump, K is like in the CK in pack, but then the pinch K, K, and then the one that's lying under this, it's back in the throat, and then you put the pinch and the line together, what you'll find, your face muscles will get tired, and your throat will too, because you're not used to using those muscles. It's a matter of practicing it. And the L is in land or large. And then with the possessive apostrophe in front of the L, then it's The tighten this muscle. Hey, I got a muscle. Oh, that's a mosquito bite. No, we don't have mosquitoes. Where I live, there's no bees, there's no mosquitoes, there's no flies, there's no songbirds, there's no stellar jays, there's no starlings. There are 3 crows.
Well, I think
There are
it's a
more
lot.
ravens.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, we've got box around our place.
Yeah, there are in certain areas, no,
Oh.
there's other places there's not. I think it all depends on where they're using a lot of pesticides.
Oh, yeah.
See, where I live, there's a lot of greenery and stuff, people with flowers and everything. And I think they're using that, and that's why those things are dying. I don't know. So the M is in mother, N is in nut, and then the NG again. This one you have to pronounce or And one way you can do that too is like the word for a positive response, on. Sometimes you can take a shortcut and just say, So the sound comes out of your nose, So Haida's the language you can speak with your mouth closed, And then the P again is in pipe, and then the P with a pinch, S, T, T, See, what was it? U as in foot, the W is like moon, ooh. W is in wind, wa, juan, ka, Mexico, Mexico. I and Klachen. Klachen is a pinch. Y is just like in yard, Y, and ya. So I made some copies of this. We might have to get a few more copies. I only made 5, so we need at least 2, 4,
5 more?
about 8 of them, I guess. I mean, we need about 5 more of them, yeah.
Are they single-sided or double-sided?
Huh?
Double-sided or single?
Just single side band.
I'll see if they can get us.
I just came over to get a bite from that.
Sit down.
You get so much. But these are just the terms for, like for your mother, your aunt, your father. There's lots of misunderstanding about who your auntie is and who your uncle is.
Especially in Manitoba.
Huh? Well, we won't get to talk about Father's Day. So are there any questions about those sounds on that alphabet?
I'm just wondering, the dialects, like if, the Skidegate dialect is different, is it, still good to be learning this and then you can get the dialect?
Well, I've got a bunch of CDs with the Skidegate dialect on it.
Oh,
And so I'll bring them next time, so if some of you wanna take them and use that so you can hear what it sounds like, because the rhythm is different.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, the words are almost the same, but they're a little bit different.
yeah, it sounds like a different language, because when I listen to my dad and Nathan Young and Reynold Russ talking, it sounded like they're speaking 3 different languages. And Dad said it was easier for him to understand Skidegate than Mass. I guess it's because of pronunciation.
Yeah. No, I don't. So do you think that when we learn English, that our worldview changed?
Yeah.
From Haida to English, kind of?
Yeah, well, see, they changed everything. The first things they attack when the colonizers move in on any land is first your language, then your spiritual ways. They've got to destroy yours and replace it with theirs.
Yeah.
And so all of our family relationships have been narrowed down to what's called a nuclear family. Well, we didn't have any such thing because, well, we'll start with, did I keep a copy for myself? Okay. Like, the mother, we did just the, that again is pronounced like the U in son. Awa. 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 Or just O. This part is O, but then it can become O. Awa. 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 So on here, in Masset they'll say Awi. Awi. A-W-I-I, and for example, Hoa Duncan, you're dunk. You want tea, but the word Duncan is not coffee or tea, it's hot water. And you just flavor it however you want to flavor it. So, so Awa is your mother, your biological mother, and your mother's biological sisters, and all of her clan sisters in the same generation as her. So, when I was a kid, my mother was Irene Nathan, Hazel Bell, Rosalind Bell, Henrietta Edenshaw, Ruth Jorgensen, Marie Vandal, Laura Natcon. I'm missing a few, but there was about 12 of them. They were all my mother. And the kids from them were all my brothers and sisters. So that's on my mother's side. And so this had some very important implications in that family structure. If I was to abuse my wife and she'd tell her brothers, there might be 20 of them. And they would come and talk to me. If I did it again, they'd hurt me. If I did it again, they'd stop short of crippling me. If I did it again, they might go to the clan chief and get permission to drown me. Because they don't want that being passed on. See, when living in a tribal society, you got that big house here, we'll say there's 30 people in there. There are no rooms, there's no privacy, so there's always a possibility of brushing against somebody, causing somebody some discomfort. And if you get some discomfort in there, you can get the whole house in uproar. It's sort of like you got a beehive and a hornet gets in there. It can stir up the whole thing, so they can get rid of that hornet. This didn't happen very often because it didn't have to happen more than once in a generation, because people knew it's called Satya Lana. So it's just drawing a straight line to the highest values of the community. And that was your guide, was those values of getting along, of paying attention. And also, when you greet somebody, you didn't, every day you didn't get up and say, good morning. Body language. Somebody steps out of your house, you know if they're having a good day or not, just by the way they behave. So you didn't have all those pleasantries, you didn't have to. But anyway, so in here, in this simple one here, you're asking, oh, do you want tea? Well, where are you going? But if I'm introducing her, so that's my mother.
D-O?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
A-W should be on there.
Yeah.
D-O.
Ow.
But if
Oh.
they're,
O-E though is an injury.
and that's not a Haida
So
word.
somebody from Mass had said, I have a O-E. Well, where? We'll put medicine on it. And then the next one is father. And this Haida is the word used by females. That's father of a girl, father. And also, father is not just my biological father. That's my father's brothers. That's my father's clan brothers. So all of them all the women would call Haida. Haida.
Well, what would the men call them?
Huh?
Like, what would I call my father?
That's the next one.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah. So you have to get that G pronounced right. You don't want to be calling them boom. So yeah, so Haida. When my daughter was, I think she was about 5 or 6 years old, they'd started a Haida language program in Heidelberg in 1969. And the summer of I guess it was 75, we were in Heidelberg. I was working on the Trans-Alaska pipeline construction. And we went to Skidegate, and my dad was talking to, I think his name was Ron Brown. He had a big store there in Skidegate. And in front of his house, he had this house wall, driftwood, this great big thing. It looked like an octopus. He painted it and even had an octopus house. And so my dad and Ron were talking. He was speaking Skidegate, and Dad was Heidelberg. And they were trying to remember how you call a devilfish house or octopus house. And my daughter was on my shoulders, and she pulled on my hair and she says, Haida, I know. I said, well, close enough. Chana, nu na region. Nu is our word for octopus. Massid is no. But so she learned that in that summer program in Heidelberg. So Dad, the other guy, Dad, say, it's good to remember, nu nai. Nai is a dwelling place. So that's the octopus house. So anyway, this is the one that's used by females, and with all this gender stuff, I don't know who's supposed to use it. But it's also, see, my aunt is my father's sister. And so So my aunt's husband, I'd also call father. I mean, the woman would call him father because he'd be on her side of the clan. Whereas with the males, father's or you said hma. When you address them, you either call them that, but you don't call them by name. Because the only one you call by name is somebody younger than you. I don't think your dad is younger than you. Looks like I made a mistake. I was cutting and pasting and I have wa instead of ma. See, it says terms of address, ma used by males, examples, wa, dog, pumpkin, that should be ma.
What about uncle?
Huh?
What about uncle? You wouldn't call him uncle?
Oh, we haven't gotten to uncle yet.
Okay, so.
See, the next one is da. You see the accent over the A, so it means your voice goes up. Da. But when you're referring to us one, then it's da ya.
Excuse me.
So the accent's on the other A. Da ya. This is my da ya. But we don't have personal possessive pronouns. So the word D is this person. So this person I'm talking about is this person's father or brother to this one. So again, it changes how you see the world. So instead of he, she, him, her, we use the one word how, that person or this person. And then Dune, you got the double U's there, so that's Dune. And one of my clan sisters, Flora Natcom's daughter, her nickname was Dunai. And then another one from my clan too, a sister, her name was, they called her Scotty. And I called her that when she was about 60. And she said, I'm not Scotty anymore, I'm Nana. I said, you know what Scotty is? That's Aunt. See, sometimes people miss little things. And so it's really important that we catch all these relationships. And then quiet. And when a person introduces, they're saying, it's Island. That's all my older siblings. But Pi is also older female, older sister. So male or female, Pi.
So you would consider, your clan aunties, your mother's sisters, their kids to be your brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And what about your father's,
His sister's kids?
yeah,
That's Tui.
and they are
Tui.
cousins?
Well, in English you call it cross cousins, but we call it Tui. Tui means that we're so closely related we can joke with each other real hard and we can't get mad. So when I refer to all of them, Ditolam, that's all of my relatives that are from my father's side, those cousins on that side. I can marry on that side. They told them I can marry that, but I can't marry on this side because that's my sister's. And I couldn't marry my dad's sister though. It has to be at least one generation removed, so that would be the daughter of my father's sister I could marry. So it's very common for two-fin killer whales to marry two-head eagles. Because those, from what I heard, for us anyway, that was the optimum relationship with those two. So that's your Kwai, and it makes them up for some other relatives too. But we'll have to get some copies of it. Chin. That's grandfather and his brothers, both on the maternal and paternal side, are the parents, the parents of your parents. That's your grandfather and also your grandmother. In Heidelberg, we use the term China, whereas in Mass they say Chini, in Skidegate it's Chinai. And I'll say Nanai, and we say Nana, and Mass it's Nani. So it's just some dialect differences. But anyway, I've got some copies here too. Huh?
Back to Sandra's point, that question that you made about people like, it's kind of like people being dominated and ways being lost kind of thing. In my dad speaking, it's like he's definitely used the word coming up of the sun. So, but he doesn't know Haida fluently out loud, but he's like a doorway speaker for some words at least. So when he was a child, he used to answer back in English, but understand Haida. So I feel like even though there was residential school in the family, that there were still Haida understandings.
Yeah, which is different than European.
Yeah.
Well, I know when I was
So when
in
they start
Quebec, when I
talking about-
lived in Ottawa, I knew people that could speak fluent French. And I said, do you think differently when you speak French? And he said, yeah. So it must be the same with all languages,
Yeah.
but you think differently, eh?
Well, see, the language, the rhythm of it too changes how your brain functions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're talking about, like, for example, we don't have gender pronouns, whereas in French and German and them, they have
Oh, yeah.
the feminine, masculine and neuter forms. And we just have that one word, oh. But we'll be getting into the different words referring to this person. HL, DA, and DDII. Well, anyway, he's making some copies of these other relatives. Did I give them?
I got the family one.
Or as they would say at home, your other donations.
Oh, it really says other relatives. Other relatives.
Terms of address.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start getting a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
I put together
This one
some
starts getting
family,
complicated.
a diagram of family trees. And it starts with your parents. And this goes to your grandmother, her mother, their mother. Over here is your father and his mother, her grand, so on like that. And then you have the husbands. These would be the eagle side in my family. And so my mother's mother would be eagle, but she would marry Raven. Raven like this. So the women, with their responsibility was to keep these straight.
You're double-sided now.
One, okay. Did you staple them?
It's double-sided.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we can hand them out. We'll hand them out, we don't pass out.
Okay, let's not pass out.
Which one is this?
Yeah.
How many newcomers
That's
do they
it.
allow in,
Okay.
like, when there's
Okay.
like adoptions,
I don't-
do you think, or is it like?
Well, adoption, the word for being born and the word for being for adoption is the same word.
Oh, cool.
Hi.
Kai.
So you sing happy birthday, Kai Sanai Jais, you're saying now, today's the day you're born. This is when you're transformed into a specific human. So my mother wasn't born Haida. So my dad's father was on the Eagle side. He and his brothers adopted my mother as their sister and gave my mother their mother's name so that we would have a clan. So they go to the father's father's clan. But if my father, say my mother was Haida, but my father wasn't, but my father might have been adopted into a crest, and that's one we would go to. There was quite a few like that, like Robert Edenshaw in Heidelberg was adopted by the Edenshaws in Massive, but he was Mi'kmaq. He ran away from the Jesuit school in Manitoba, and he ended up in Vancouver Island. And they picked him up there at Victoria, but he didn't know his name.
How did he get that far? Did he take the railroad or something?
Well, he came all the way from Manitoba.
Like, how did he?
Well, people used to travel a great deal before the Europeans arrived. I didn't ask him the specifics, but anyway, so they gave him a chief's name too, Kuku. So he was our neighbor, and I used to visit with him a lot. And he told me about being on the sailing ships and going to Siberia, to Russia, and China, Japan. Those old men, they traveled all over the world. Peter Bell worked at the whaling station at Lahaina in Hawaii. Sam Davis was living in Yokohama when two young guys from Massett showed up looking for their chinny. And he came back with them because there was lots of Haidas there.
In Japan?
Yeah. See, one of the reasons why many of the men left was when the Europeans came in, this Vancouver was a major seaport, so it was flooded with drugs and alcohol. There was a bigger drug problem then than there is now.
Wow.
Because they had opium, they had laudanum, and I forget what that other one was, but laudanum was a mixture of opium and alcohol. And those usually resulted in multiple murders. Guys would just go nuts on that laudanum. And then in one of the stores, see I know this woman that wrote her doctoral dissertation on Native American alcoholism and drug addiction. And so that whole history was in there about what was happening here on the coast. And there was prostitution, people didn't know what it was. And so some of these guys just left. They couldn't handle it. They went to Japan. There was one guy in Massett, his name was Steve. I think he was from the Nathan family. But he got deported from Japan when the war with the U.S. started in 1941. So they sent him back here, and his wife and kids were still in Japan. And they used to tease him about seeing in the newsreels the Japanese destroyer was sunk, and there was one red-headed Japanese sailor, because he was a red-headed guy. But they would tease like that, and it wasn't very funny. But another guy that was teaching physics at Lethbridge University, Shiguro Kunotsu, said when they were doing some research, they found, but they couldn't identify who it was, that Haidas had actually taken some of these Japanese families, instead of them going to those camps, Haidas took them and hid them out, all during the war. So there's been this tie for some reason, and some of it is kind of funny. There was a salmon cannery north of Heidelberg called Waterfall Cannery, and there were lots of Japanese workers there, and there was one guy named Nakamura. He was quite the ladies' man. And anyway, when the war started, they took them all off to the camps. And so my grandmother and the women of her age were lecturing the young women that if the Japanese attack, to invade, run for the woods, cause they catch you, they're gonna rape you. And this one lady, this is sort of like Nora Bella, just always had some, she says, I'll take Nakamura. To the disgust of the old ladies. So, there was always something to laugh about. But anyway, the drugs and alcohol messed everything up really very badly. And if any of you get a chance to read The Daughters of Copperwoman, I think it's one of, what was her name? Anyway, it was talking about the people on Vancouver Island, that they knew they would get venereal disease from these sailors, but they'd had enough of them, so some women volunteered to be, have sex with these sailors, and that would take then the men would come in and kill these sailors, and these women, I think, were killed too, because of the syphilis and other venereal diseases. But it's a pretty tough story, but, so the stuff that was going on here, they make it sound like they were very nice people, but they weren't. Well, just take a look at the thousands of kids that were sent here from the British Empire, the Empire kids. They sent them out and put them in these farms and day laborers and all kinds of things. So then what they did for the Irish, they sent them down to the Caribbean. They worked as slaves on the plantations down there, sugar plantations.
Really?
And so when they got to First Nations, they already had a lot of experience of doing that. But they had to get our language and get our spiritual ways, but also they had to convince the kids that ours is the only valid information. Our books, our Bible, our teachings, the priests, it's the only valid one. Your grandparents, your parents, that's useless. You don't know any of that stuff. And they did it for how many generations? So now trying to this reconciliation is where we have to reconcile among ourselves. How do we start getting along again without causing people discomfort? We're living all in one house. So anyway, these other relations, other relatives, there's Chin. Again, the A is pronounced like Chin, grandfather and his brothers. Ho Chun. Ho is that person's grandfather, whether it's male or female. So I would say my sister and I would both use the same terms. And then Nan, we say Nana, again, Master is Nani, and Skiddigan is Nanai. This whole thing about elders too, and about matriarchs, that comes from the Europeans, matriarch. Our house was fairly close to that of my grandmother. My grandfather died when I was 4 years old. And so my grandmother never remarried. So we boys would always be going over to her house to do little chores here and there. So I was the closest one there, so I was always there when the women would come in there. And they would come to see her because she was sort of what they call Jews. This is a woman of great calm and presence who walked in the ranks of Jews. But I'd listen to them because, from where I was in the kitchen, it was maybe about that far to where they went into the living room. I could hear everything. And somebody'd have a problem, person would come in, and they didn't start off with, complaining. They'd tell a funny story that had something in it about what had happened to them. And my grandmother would pick up on it and then would answer in a joking way. So they were never made to feel like victims. There was always funny ways in which they could do that. But what they're doing is when you get saddened by something, you go into your head and it gets worse. Come go stay. Stop being sick, you're making yourself sick. So they would say something funny that pulls you out of that. We do it all the time through a Strengthening Families program. We don't get into their stories. We tell them another story.
A bunch of youth have asked me, do you do strengthening youth programs
No,
for,
that's
for
some,
boys?
no, well, yeah, we
Young
do
adults.
have one for boys that are in foster care, age 10 to 12.
Well, nothing from when they're starting to age out and when
No.
they're young adults?
Would be good to do though.
Yeah, cause a whole bunch of girls were asking me, there's all these girls groups, but where are the boys groups? Because they're getting the wrong idea from movies and the news.
What I'd like to see happen, but it would require some sort of well, they talk about, some legal liabilities. If we take those young guys and put them in with the fathers. And that's what I wanted to do, was because what I wanna see happen is when they start aging out, they're teaching you independent living, they're making you live alone. And that's an aberration with all our tribal cultures. Nobody lives alone. And so, what I was hoping we would do is to be able to get these young, let's say young men, to sit in with the fathers so they can start developing another network of support. And they can start finding out, what is my job gonna be as a father? What is a man? What am I supposed to do? But the way it is now, they have this independent living and you get aged out and do the best you can. So I really wish there was some way we could change that, but unfortunately that's above my pay grade. I'm what they call a family support elder with no authority to do anything. So,
Well, see, maybe communities have to just create
Well,
things and do things.
So how did you set up strengthening fathers, strengthening families, and then,
well,
strengthening?
I started looking through that corporation I had about the Haida Voicing Society. And it'd be very easy to change the name of it to the cultural awareness, I don't know, some name, incorporated. And then, because I was down there talking to the council people, they got lots of money for these programs, but nobody to give it to.
Well, you have to be able to write a proposal,
Well, that's what you're here for.
so we need to know what's the outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Because if
Yeah,
you don't
'cause-
have an outcome, I can't
See,
write it.
I was hoping this would be part of the discussion with the elders, of what are we gonna do? Because, like I told the class at the very beginning about that prophecy that says an eagle flies the highest in the night and lands on the moon, it'll drop the arrows. And then there's another one that says the medicine people be called back from the earth by the tears of their children. So we've been set free to do as we choose. What are we gonna do? And now the children are calling. We want to live, we want to be happy, we want to be valued, we want somebody to take care of us and to guide us. We're not supposed to be trying to shape and change them to be like us. Because we've made all the mistakes. Maybe others got a few more to make. If we listen to them, and that's what we do in our Strengthening Families program, we tell the parents, listen for feelings. Son comes home, just finished doing a paper, I gotta do this research thing and all this, and the mother just says, boy, that can be very difficult. Something to that effect. Another guy says the coach yelled at him in front of all the other guys. And the father's response is, well, I guess you must be pretty mad at him. Instead of taking the coach's side, to get him to keep talking, talk about what it is. And the kids come home, one of the videos we had, this girl, probably about 10, 11 years old, smiling and happy, says to her dad, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a singer. Oh, honey, you do all right. Right. 1 in a million. So they get, their dreams get squashed. So our job is to stop doing that and listen to them. And so again, when we start putting together these family trees that show us who their family is, you're never alone. There's a support system out there, and that's what we do with our Strengthening Families programs. We get them to meet each other, to talk to each other. So when things start going haywire, they don't have to call a social worker, they call a friend. So that's partly what this is all about, is reconciliation among ourselves. And so that got kind of far off, but the other relatives, not, N-A-A-T, not, can be a nephew or a niece. And then there's one called Not Yaku. Not Yaku is the true nephew. That's the one that's the heir apparent. An uncle will designate a nephew that's going to inherit. And that one's called Not Yaku, and this is the one that sits back to back with his uncle. And what that means is when they're traveling somewhere on a canoe, everybody's facing forward except the Not Yaku. He sits with his back to his uncle. He's looking over the back end of the boat. So if something's coming from behind, he'll tell his uncle about it. As they're passing land features, he'll describe to his uncle how it looks looking that way. So when they turn around to come back, his uncle always knows where he is. But his uncle has to trust him to be accurate and truthful. And then there's a second nephew that's called Kuswan. Kuswan is the other one of equal rank. There was a guy in Heidelberg, his nickname was Kasi, but he was Kuswan. He was in line. I don't know whatever happened with that. I was away from Heidelberg quite a bit. So niece can be also, and these characters, this nephew and niece, there was a ceremony. Oh, it's 8 o'clock. So I better talk fast. There was a ceremony in the spring. If there was some person, male or female, that was regarded by the community as crucial to the well-being of the community, there was a ceremony to ask for that spirit to be returned early. There's a place in a stream called Eli. Eli is sometimes translated to mean a round hole in the water. But this is where if you have a stream bed, it suddenly gets a real deep place like that. Or sometimes it's in a lake. Stream is flowing, and this one here. In the fall, when the salmon spawn, they die, and some of them will drift down into this key line. And during the winter months, this water is very cold and very still, so the carcasses deteriorate very, very slowly. So in the spring, the only thing left in there is the nutrients from their bodies. And so when the hatchlings, these tiny fish, when they're moving downstream toward the ocean, they have a yolk sac just below their gills that they feed on before they start getting their own food. And sometimes they deplete it, and they get to this gili to come down into this place of sustenance. But this is also said of where a woman's feelings are, in this place of sustenance. And if a man knows that, he knows how to bring that woman's feelings up, where two can become one, can become more. But as the old man said, that women weren't that generous with us guys. They said guys are like a feather on the water when the wind blows. So anyway, Eli they would go to a certain gili in the spring. And when the sun is going down, just as it gets below the horizon, just right on it, they say a window opens to the other side, to the village on the other side, and that's when the ceremony begins. And the drum is what holds it open. The message is going through it, the drum. And the knot will dress in the exact likeness of the person that they were, the one they want that spirit back. Sometimes it's a nephew, sometimes it's a niece. That person goes down by his gili, and these little ones are moving down him. He or she talks to them and tells them about we need the spirit back, and begins to talk about all the attributes of that person. So that in the morning, just at Saint-Clement, just as the light is sweeping away the dark, the drum stops. And then there was other ceremonies and songs, but these salmon will go out. They're very powerful, mysterious people who make long journeys. So when they go out the next year, just as they were going out again, the first child born, male or female, 1 year after this ceremony, it said that that spirit is returned in that person. So they had songs for returning from the dead. It's not really returning from the dead so much as bringing that reincarnated spirit. All of us carry one with us. We haven't had just our own life force, but we have that other one with us.
So would that be like a chief that passed away, or would it be a young person?
It could be anybody who was deemed by the community.
And they just aren't so
This
missed.
person is so important to the whole community.
Wow, that's amazing that they would have a ceremony for that.
Yeah. Well, there was lots of things that the Europeans had to try to quell,
Yeah.
to stomp them out. And the whole thing about bowing is what you do to a king. That's how you submit. You yield. Because if you don't bow your head, you're liable to lose it. So they had to teach us to submit. Submit, submit, submit. Whereas with ours, when a child was born, they hold it up to the sky at night, moonless night, and tell the stars, this is your grandchild, look out for him. Grandchild, that's all your relatives. So when you get a little bit older, take you out and say, look at that. Some people in the world is pressing on down. They look up at that thing and tell themselves how insignificant my problems and they are when I look at that. They said, never do that to yourself, never make yourself small. You say, that's all my relatives. Now I'm as big as anything. So you never make yourself small. And you don't make anybody else small, because your stature is determined by how tall you are, and how small you make somebody else look. And then, Inan told me when you want people to know how important that something, what you just said is very, very important. My spirit says so too, but you have to sing with a light voice, not like your hemorrhoid sufferer. When you say things in a happy form, you're ready to accept, to receive any messages and any teachings. See, if your voice goes up and it comes down here, it's easier to pronounce. But when you're asking a question too, synonym Haida. When you ask a question, the last syllable, your voice goes down, whereas in English it goes up. Settle down, Haida. How is the state of your spirit? Some people say, well, how are you? That's really an open question. Anyway, I guess I better stop. I'm going deaf from the sound of my own voice.
What does that mean again?
That's
My spirit says so too.
My spirit?
My spirit says so too.
so your spirit is so too. There's a number of things that are kind of like this. Like that brother told me when I was still, you don't pray to be restored because we don't know if that's what it's meant to be. Instead it says, my spirit calls, take a look, see what I need.
Or maybe you can't pray for yourself.
Huh?
Maybe you can't pray for yourself.
Well, that's the only person you can pray for. Yeah, because you can't know what other people need. And, but the church has told us that their priests have more powerful prayers than us. So we have them make prayers for us. We got saints to go and talk to God for us. But in ours, you're speaking for yourself when you ask for something. But usually, you're expressing gratitude. You're just so happy for everything, or glad, whether it's painful or not. It's all part of being human. Because it says that the first human was formed from earth that was dampened by tears of sadness and tears of gladness. So nothing is made with only one side. This is the scariest thing I've ever done. Because they post that. If there are any detractors, boy, they're right there.
So when we do dancing under the paddles, is there anything specific we need to learn?
What's that?
Is there anything specific we need to learn when we do dancing under the paddles?
Going somewhere specific when you're
No,
paddling?
is there anything specific we need to learn when dancing under the paddles?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll talk about that some more too, because I've got some booklets here that have some exercises in there for basic language, so that we can start getting into that. But I still want to take the time though to talk about that. All I is a paddle hit. That's dancing under the paddle. All I hit. It's really, it's sort of not quite a correct translation, because the person is behind you and is sheltering and protecting you. So that's what that means when you're dancing under the paddle. There's somebody here that's going to protect and provide for me. And there's another one dancing alongside you that's always going to walk alongside you. And as you get into the room, then I tell the men, "Who's go on? That's enough." And they turn and go back. Hugwa! Keep dancing until you find your special place. I'll never interfere in your search for your own special place. So those are the 4 promises. I'll always protect you, I'll always provide for you, I'll always walk alongside, and I'll never interfere in your search.
If we've done it before, do you want us to do it again? When is
Yeah.
it? And should we bring significant others then?
What's that?
Should we bring like our significant other?
Oh, this could be everybody,
Okay,
but they won't dance. This is only for the women.
alright.
And there'll be drummers, because this is where the men are making these promises. But we'll go over it, so
When is it gonna be?
I have to ask Colin. He's, I don't even know when the program's supposed to end.
Oh, it just gives calendar.
Yes, calendar.
Let's see.
Where